The intelligence summary, delivered to Adolf Hitler at Berghof residence during late December 1941, contained analysis of President Franklin Roosevelt's address to Congress following Pearl Harbor attack. The American declaration of war against Japan on December 8th had been followed by German declaration of war against United States on December 11th, making formal what had been undeclared naval conflict in Atlantic. The Foreign Ministry assessment compiled by career diplomats emphasized that Roosevelt's rhetoric characterized war as struggle between democracy and tyranny, permitting no compromise short of complete enemy defeat. Hitler had anticipated that America's entry into war would be limited to Pacific theater against Japan, while European conflict remained primarily Anglo-German affair, where negotiated settlement might eventually prove acceptable to Washington. The intelligence indicated this assumption was fundamentally wrong. The strategic miscalculation stemmed from Hitler's misunderstanding of American political culture and of Roosevelt's personal determination to destroy Nazi regime regardless of cost. The belief that American isolationist sentiment would prevent sustained commitment to European war had shaped German diplomatic strategy since 1939. The assumption that racial attitudes would make Americans reluctant to fight for Britain or Soviet Union had reinforced conviction that United States wouldn't pursue total war objectives. The reality emerging from American public statements and military preparations was that Pearl Harbor had unified American society behind war effort with intensity that German planners hadn't anticipated, and that Roosevelt intended exploiting this unity to achieve unconditional surrender rather than negotiated peace. Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop had provided Hitler with assessments suggesting that American industrial capacity, while substantial, couldn't be effectively converted to military production quickly enough to affect European war before Germany achieved decisive victories. The estimates of time required for American military mobilization assumed that industrial conversion, training of forces, and transportation of armies to Europe would require years, during which German conquest of Soviet Union would create facts rendering American intervention irrelevant. The December intelligence revealed that American mobilization was proceeding faster than German estimates projected, and that Roosevelt was prioritizing European theater despite ongoing Pacific War. Ambassador Hans Thomsen had been expelled from Washington following German declaration of war, but his final dispatches, transmitted through Swiss intermediaries, documented American public mood following Pearl Harbor. The reports described that isolationist sentiment had evaporated overnight, with former opponents of intervention now demanding aggressive prosecution of war. The political unity, spanning Democrats and Republicans, eliminated domestic opposition that might have constrained Roosevelt's war aims. The industrial mobilization orders being implemented exceeded anything attempted during peacetime, with automobile factories converting to tank production and shipyards expanding capacity for mass production of cargo vessels and warships. Hitler's response combined dismissal of American military capability with conviction that ideological differences between capitalist America and communist Soviet Union would eventually fracture Allied coalition. The argument was that natural antagonism between systems would create tensions that Germany could exploit through offering Western powers settlement that preserved capitalism while redirecting German expansion solely against Bolshevism. The strategic concept was that America and Britain would recognize that preserving Germany as bulwark against Soviet communism served their interests better than pursuing total war that would exhaust all participants, creating power vacuum that Soviet Union would dominate. The Casablanca Conference in January 1943, where Roosevelt and Churchill proclaimed unconditional surrender policy, provided definitive evidence that Western allies wouldn't negotiate separate peace. The joint declaration eliminated possibility of exploiting divisions between Allied powers by establishing that all major allies were committed to complete destruction of Axis military forces and political systems. Hitler received intelligence summaries about Casablanca with recognition that diplomatic options were foreclosed, but interpreted policy as propaganda position that would soften once military realities demonstrated impossibility of achieving total victory. General Alfred Jodl, Chief of Wehrmacht Operations Staff, presented military assessments showing that American entry transformed strategic balance by adding industrial capacity that exceeded combined production of all Axis powers. The statistics documented that American steel production was approximately 5 times German output, that aircraft production was accelerating toward levels exceeding 50,000 annually, and that shipbuilding was replacing merchant tonnage faster than U-boats could sink vessels. The implications were that prolonged war would progressively favor allies as American production reached European and Pacific theaters in overwhelming quantities. Hitler dismissed quantitative assessments by emphasizing qualitative factors, including German tactical superiority, ideological commitment, and will to fight. The argument was that material advantages couldn't compensate for moral and spiritual weaknesses in democratic societies, where individualism undermined collective sacrifice necessary for total war. The conviction was that American forces composed of diverse ethnicities lacking racial cohesion would prove inferior to Germanic soldiers motivated by National Socialist ideology. The prediction was that American casualties would generate domestic opposition, forcing Roosevelt to seek negotiated settlement. The intelligence about American war production methods revealed systematic approaches to manufacturing that German industry hadn't replicated. The reports described assembly line techniques being applied to aircraft and ship construction, enabling mass production at rates that German craft-based methods couldn't match. The standardization of designs across manufacturers allowed components to be produced in multiple locations and assembled efficiently. The management systems coordinating suppliers, manufacturers, and military requirements demonstrated organizational capabilities that German war economy lacked, despite rhetorical commitment to total mobilization. Foreign ministry officials who had served in the United States attempted explaining to Hitler that American political system's apparent chaos actually enabled rapid consensus formation when external threat unified diverse interests. The descriptions of how Pearl Harbor had transformed American society from divided to unified were dismissed as defeatist because acknowledging American resolve contradicted Hitler's conviction that democracies were inherently weak. The institutional dynamic was that accurate intelligence about enemy capabilities and intentions was rejected when it conflicted with ideological assumptions about racial and political superiority. The Battle of Midway in June 1942 provided early evidence that American military forces possessed combat effectiveness that German intelligence had underestimated. The destruction of 4 Japanese carriers demonstrated American naval aviation capability and suggested that Pacific War wouldn't proceed as favorably for Axis as anticipated. The intelligence implications were that if America could defeat Japan's experienced naval forces, then European theater would face similarly capable American military once mobilization was complete. Hitler's interpretation was that Midway represented Japanese tactical errors rather than fundamental American competence. The North African campaign, where American forces entered combat against Wehrmacht in November 1942, provided direct test of American military capability. The initial engagements at Kasserine Pass in February 1943 showed American inexperience, allowing German tactical victories. The subsequent American adaptation and eventual victory in Tunisia demonstrated learning capacity and material advantages that enabled overcoming initial setbacks. The pattern established was that American forces improved rapidly through experience, while German forces couldn't replace losses or maintain equipment readiness as logistics deteriorated. Albert Speer, as armaments minister, provided Hitler with assessments comparing German and American industrial output, showing widening gap favoring allies. The projections indicated that even maximum German production couldn't match American capacity, suggesting that attrition warfare would inevitably favor enemy possessing larger industrial base. The recommendations were that Germany should seek negotiated settlement while still possessing military strength to bargain from position that wouldn't exist once American production reached full capacity. Hitler rejected Speer's assessments as defeatist and ordered continued mobilization, assuming that willpower could overcome material disadvantages. The invasion of Normandy in June 1944 demonstrated American capability for conducting complex amphibious operations at scale that German intelligence hadn't believed possible. The logistics of landing and sustaining multiple divisions across English Channel while maintaining simultaneous operations in Italy and Pacific exceeded German estimates of American organizational capacity. The recognition that America could project military power across oceans while sustaining forces through extended supply lines revealed capabilities that made geographic isolation irrelevant as defensive advantage. Hitler's final assessments of American intentions came through analyzing Roosevelt's public statements and diplomatic communications intercepted through intelligence services. The consistency with which Roosevelt articulated unconditional surrender as non-negotiable war aim, regardless of military setbacks or political pressures, demonstrated personal commitment that wouldn't change through diplomatic overtures. The realization that American leadership was determined to destroy Nazi regime completely rather than seeking compromise, settlement, occurred gradually as successive German attempts at indicating flexibility were ignored or rejected. The contrast between Hitler's expectations about American behavior and actual American conduct revealed fundamental misunderstanding about democratic societies' capacity for sustained conflict when unified by moral purpose. The assumption that material comfort would make Americans unwilling to accept casualties proved wrong when Pearl Harbor created sense of national mission. The belief that racial diversity would prevent military cohesion was contradicted by American forces demonstrating effectiveness across all theaters. The conviction that capitalism and communism were incompatible allies was challenged by Roosevelt and Stalin, maintaining cooperation despite ideological differences. When Hitler learned America would never negotiate, the recognition emerged through accumulation of evidence rather than single revelation. The December 1941 intelligence about Roosevelt's war aims provided initial indication. The Casablanca Declaration in January 1943 made unconditional surrender explicit policy. The sustained American offensive operations through 1944 demonstrated military capability backing diplomatic position. The refusal to respond to German peace feelers transmitted through neutral channels confirmed that American determination wasn't propaganda, but genuine commitment. The institutional failures within German leadership prevented accurate assessment from informing strategy. The intelligence services compiled reports documenting American industrial mobilization and military preparations, but analyses were filtered through interpretive frameworks, confirming Hitler's preconceptions rather than challenging assumptions. The diplomatic corps attempted explaining American political dynamics, but career professionals' assessments were dismissed as defeatist when they contradicted ideological certainties. The military commanders provided statistics about material balance, but quantitative evidence was rejected in favor of qualitative arguments about German superiority. The propaganda efforts directed at American audiences attempted exploiting racial and class divisions, assuming that domestic conflicts would undermine war unity. The messaging emphasized that war served British imperial interests rather than American security, and that casualties would be borne disproportionately by working class and minority populations. The campaigns failed because Pearl Harbor had created national consensus transcending peacetime divisions, and because Roosevelt's leadership maintained focus on defeating fascism as moral imperative. The ineffectiveness of propaganda revealed gap between German understanding of American society and actual motivations driving American war effort. The comparison with how Roosevelt assessed German intentions showed asymmetry in strategic understanding. American intelligence and diplomatic services provided Roosevelt with accurate assessments of Nazi ideology and Hitler's unwillingness to accept anything short of German hegemony in Europe. The conclusion that negotiation was impossible because Hitler's objectives were incompatible with international order based on national sovereignty was reached through systematic analysis rather than ideological assumption. The American commitment to unconditional surrender reflected realistic assessment that Nazi regime couldn't be reformed, only destroyed. The strategic consequence was that Germany faced war against coalition possessing overwhelming material superiority and political unity, making defeat inevitable, absent dramatic developments that German military situation couldn't produce. The recognition came too late to affect fundamental decisions that had led to war because Hitler's worldview prevented acknowledging that democratic societies could be more resolute than totalitarian regimes when defending principles rather than pursuing conquest. The miscalculation about American intentions represented broader pattern where ideological assumptions replaced realistic assessment, producing strategic decisions based on wishful thinking rather than accurate intelligence. The personal dimension involved Hitler's psychological investment in beliefs about American weakness that prevented acknowledging evidence contradicting those beliefs. The conviction that racially mixed democracy couldn't sustain total war effort was central to worldview justifying German aggression. Admitting that American society possessed strengths that German racial theories denied would have required questioning fundamental ideological premises. The cognitive dissonance was resolved by dismissing evidence rather than revising beliefs, creating decision-making environment where strategy was based on desired reality rather than actual circumstances. The lesson was that understanding enemies' political culture and leadership psychology was as important as assessing military capabilities. Hitler's failure to comprehend that Roosevelt's commitment to destroying Nazism was absolute rather than negotiable led to strategic choices, assuming diplomatic options existed when actually unconditional surrender was only acceptable outcome. The inability to recognize American determination until military defeat was imminent demonstrated how ideological rigidity prevented adapting strategy to realities that contradicted preconceived beliefs about enemy weaknesses.